Hello, welcome to Menopause Motivation. I'm Gabrielle O'Hare, and this is episode 2 of my new podcast. And today I want to talk about how cravings are my superpower. This is a big about term for me, and I'm going to explain this a bit because I really think about food cravings as something that I have been battling for a significant part of my life. And there are times when I have absolutely hated the power that food seemed to hold over me. There were times where I couldn't stop the cravings, when I couldn't help but give in to them. And then when I did, whatever I was eating, whatever I was craving, never even felt that good. Didn't make me feel better. In fact, quite often it would make me feel worse. So even though you're going into this destructive cycle of having cravings and giving into them, you know they're not helping. They're making you feel worse, but you still can't get out of that cycle. And the cravings have been behind a battle with my weight that's been part of a big part of my adult life. But I've very recently realized that actually they've been giving me some incredible insights into my life, and particularly the way I've approached it and used the information that cravings have given me in the last few years has made me think about cravings in a completely different way. And actually, bizarrely, and I never thought I would even say this, become grateful for them and see them as a gift and see them as a superpower. So I'm going to explain that a little bit more. And this has come from doing quite a lot of reflection and sort of just asking myself a lot of questions. And when I look back, I can see that cravings, because they come and go, and they've been a barometer for how things are going in my life. They're not something that have to do with how happy or sad I am. It's not quite that simple. So if I had a row with someone and I was cross, I wouldn't necessarily just go and eat. In fact, there are times in my life where I've been really upset from having an argument, and that's just killed my appetite. So, but what they do have to do with, they have to do with how fulfilled I feel or how lost I feel. So if I'm in a state where my life feels right for me, I feel like I've got purpose, I feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to do, if that makes sense, then food has no power. But when I start to feel stuck, lost, frustrated, where something's off, then that the cravings come back. Food has power, and sometimes it can have an enormous hold over me. And I'm somebody who likes food, who likes eating. I'm not someone who only eats when they feel hungry or stops when they feel full. I have no off switch. I never have. I will happily think about food all day, plan my next meal while eating the previous one. And I've known for a long time that my natural appetite hormones do not do the job that they are supposed to do, because I never know I'm full till it's far too late, until I'm far too uncomfortable. But for some divine reason, I was given a daughter who is the total opposite to me, who has the most perfectly functioning food hormones and or hunger hormones. And I have never had that opportunity to get so close to see what that looks like for someone. But I do, because she's my daughter and I see her. And I see her behavior around food. And what's fascinating to me is she has no interest in food at all when she's not hungry. I could go in now and say, "What do you want for your tea tonight?" She wouldn't even she wouldn't even entertain me with an answer, because she would just be thinking, "I don't even know, I'm not hungry now." And when she is hungry, I mean, she's 18 now, so she'll sometimes make her own food, or quite often make her own food. But when she's hungry, she will not eat until she has a meal in front of her, because she doesn't want to ruin her appetite. Whereas me, my natural behavior, the minute I started to feel hungry, would be, and thinking my tea's a way off, or I've got to make it first, I would start picking and nibbling. Or if I'd be preparing vegetables, I'd be eating them while I was doing it. She would, and as many times I've got to my meal and my appetite's been gone and I've eaten it because I've made it, but not really enjoyed it. Whereas she's the opposite of that. She automatically, obviously not from being taught this by me, automatically knows, enjoys that anticipation of a meal, and will wait until she's sat there ready and eat it. And then when she is full, whatever is left on her plate completely loses its appeal. There's no way of tempting her after a meal when she's full with a dessert. When she was younger, even her own birthday cake wouldn't make her carry on eating. I mean, I just can't even comprehend that. It must be wonderful. And I remember saying, "Do you want your birthday cake?" Yeah, later. And that was it, gone, forgotten. And I've thrown lots of birthday cake or eaten it myself many days after that she's never been back to. So it's a gift. I mean, it's a gift for her completely, but it's also been a gift for me because as someone who is the complete opposite, I've witnessed that. And it's helped me understand myself a lot. All my adult life, because I didn't have this amazingly inbuilt set of perfectly functioning appetite hormones, I've had to watch what I eat. And soon after I left home, when I was 19 and went to university or polytechnic as it was then, I learned the effect that my unregulated appetite had on my weight. So I had to learn some tough lessons about how to control it myself, which meant following various diets, as you can imagine, doing exercise. Mostly I took running up because that burned the most calories. And mostly that worked. But there are two standout times in my life when cravings really took hold and wreaked absolute havoc. And the first one was in my 30s when two big things collided. I went through a period of ill-informed vegetarian and veganism. I say ill-informed because I didn't understand how to eat properly then. And I started to feel stifled by my life. I had worked since I left college. So from 21, I had a great career, a lovely job, but I was starting to feel I just needed a change. So I loved Spanish. I'd gone to school, adults education school, to learn Spanish, I should say, and I desperately wanted to have a year out and go and live in Spain. But my partner or husband at the time wasn't so keen. So I was unsettled. I wasn't feeding myself properly, and I was really unsettled in my life because there was something I wanted that I wasn't able to do. And the result of that was a period of the most insane cravings. It was a real torment. I would come home from work, eat a massive dinner, and very intentionally, huge, trying to fill myself up, trying to get that feeling of fullness. But afterwards, I'd still have this very strange sensation. I interpret it as hunger, but it was like an ache in the pit of my stomach that I just couldn't get rid of. So I'd eat this massive tea. Then I'd go through all the cupboards in my house and I'd be looking for something that I could eat that would get rid of that feeling. It would like dried fruit or handfuls of cereal or bread or crackers, or it just went on and on and on. And I'm not joking, every night was the same. And I would stop eating because it was bedtime. And I would lie there with the most painfully distended stomach, bloated, gassy, horrible. And that was a cycle that I got trapped in. And it was a pretty desperate time, if I'm honest. And I was deeply ashamed of what I was doing. I confided in nobody. I really didn't talk to anyone about what I was going through. And I ended up being, I would say, addicted to laxatives because it was the only way I could think of to control my weight. And I can't remember how long this went on for, but it was quite a long time. And it only stopped when I gave up my job and finally did what I had really deeply been longing to do and went traveling. And I ended up going to live in Italy and then traveling around Spain and India for the next 16 months. And that's how that phase of these insane cravings ended. And I managed okay after that. I got the traveling out of my system, came back, went back to work, moved house, had a baby. And my weight didn't, it was probably ups and downs. I'm sure there were diets, but nothing really that was like a standout period of time for me until my mid-40s. And the cravings came back then. And this time the cause was a lot more complex. I was certainly, in hindsight, perimenopausal, but I didn't realize it for a good few years after that. And I also went through several years of really intense work-related stress. And that was running a series of struggling and eventually failing businesses with my partner. And that meant having to work incredibly hard. We worked together, so we had to rely on each other. We were living with this daily fear of running out of money, losing everything, and if because we were both in it, there wasn't someone else to prop us up. And we got terrifyingly close to running out of money and losing everything. It was a really, really difficult time. We ran a photography production business and we had a big client who went into administration owing us an awful lot of money. And we had to close the business. And we had a little bit set aside. I managed to get a new job just in time. Literally, the day I got paid for my new job was the day we ran out of the money from our other one. The timing, seat of your pants, I'm just so lucky that I got that job. But that next job turned into a complete nightmare. And I was really struggling with the stress of that, which was just getting bigger every day I went in. And then I got news of my dad having cancer, terminal cancer. So it was out of the frying pan into the fire. And by this point, I started breaking down at work, physically crying. I'd never done anything like that in my life. And I asked for help from my line manager. And that day, same day, the afternoon that I'd mentioned that I needed some support because of everything I was going through with the stress, with the news about my dad, I got taken into a meeting room with my 28-year-old boss, more than half my age, and an HR, and was fired. And 4 weeks after that, we went into lockdown. And that's sometime after that was when actually the penny dropped that I was perimenopausal. So the rug had been pulled from under my life. We'd had a very difficult few years, and then literally my career was taken away from me. And because we were in lockdown, I had no idea how to put my life back together, where to start, what my future meant. And this story was over an extended period of years, and it took a while to resolve itself from that point. And there were several years of cravings, and what came alongside that, of course, was struggling to manage my weight, which was always felt like a big deal. Funny that with all this going on, you can sort of see in hindsight. And when I look back at this period and just pull away from the sort of emotional aspect of it, and there were several things that were going on. The external stress of a very difficult situation, clearly, was also a very intense time from my relationship because we lived together, we worked together, there was no time out for it, there was no one to fall back on it, to back on either emotionally or financially. There's a lot of shame attached to failing with your business. So that was stuff we both had to struggle with. Then, of course, there were the impact of hormonal changes. Menopause makes it massively harder to cope with stress. It dialed up my anxiety to crazy levels. I was constantly overwhelmed. My brain was just absolutely destroying me from the inside out. I had so much to do. I was literally fighting for survival, didn't know where to start, I felt stuck, I felt frustrated, I felt resentful, angry, terrified, all of those things. And then on top of that, I was going into my sort of mid-40s, but mid to late 40s, and really starting to get a sense of my life changing all around me. Up until then, you had that sense that you'd built your own life. I'd made the various big decisions in my life that got me to that point, but all of a sudden, I wasn't in control anymore. The kids were growing up. I knew that they would be off doing their own things and wouldn't need looking after in the same way. My dad sadly did pass away. That changes your whole life when you start to lose parents. My career was brought to a completely abrupt halt by someone who was half my age, and that which completely floored me. And then obviously realizing I was perimenopausal, then I'm faced with the idea that I'm going into middle age. And what did that mean? Being my career always was part of me staying young, if that made sense. I could compete or hold my own with everyone else of all different ages, but suddenly I was out of that. I was on my own. I was going through menopause. I was frightened that I was going to lose everything because of that, or and so this was a sense of everything changing around me. And in the middle of all that, I was also desperate, not surprisingly, for my life to change. I was really burnt out and stung by so many things that had happened, and I didn't want to go back and look for another job, another boss, another difficult situations, but I didn't know what to do or where to start. It was lockdown. I had no job. How? No one knew what was going on. I didn't have the money to run away, which is just as well because I would have done. I still had a daughter at school, so I wanted things to be different so much, but I didn't know how, and I didn't even know where to start because I didn't know what I want. I was well and truly just stuck. And when you look at all these things that happen, is it any wonder that I struggled with cravings during all of this time? Is it any wonder that I was in a losing battle with my weight? No. The turning point in that insane set of circumstances came from at the end of it all when I lost my job, before my dad died, but we knew things were really serious. And just realizing, facing up to the fact that I really was perimenopausal and I was going to go into menopause, and that had huge implications for my health potentially. And I realized with all that mess, with all that uncertainty, the one thing that I did have control over was my health and fitness. And that was an anchor point for me because I could control nothing else. I couldn't stop people growing up. I couldn't take the world out of lockdown. I couldn't get myself another job or know where to start. But what I could do was I could take care of myself. So that was all I could do, all I could focus on during that time. And that kept me sane. But started to give me some purpose back, and it became a starting point for then a lot of change. And I started to sort of use or cultivate the idea of being an athlete. Now, anyone who knows me knows I've got no sporting talent in any way at all. But instead of training for an event, I saw myself as an athlete in my own life, training for the next stage of my life. And I liked that idea. That really started to sort of attach itself into my brain and gave me something to start to hang other things onto. Because I knew, whilst there was lots of things that were very overwhelming that I didn't know, I knew with absolute certainty that whatever was next for me, I needed to be fit, I needed to be strong, not just in my body, but also in my mind. So that was a turning point in my journey when I started to turn things around from feeling completely out of control to bringing back the control to me. And that was also behind why I decided to retrain as a personal trainer, which is 5 years ago now. So, over the course of this extended journey, I would say from my probably a decade if I think about it, God, from my mid 40s to now, I'm 54 next month. My cravings have come and gone through this journey. They've been a source of frustration, they've been a source of embarrassment, they've been a source of real deep shame. And I don't feel like I will ever be truly free of them. But I have finally found peace with them because truly they are my superpower. Because believe it or not, they have guided me through this challenging period of my life. And they continue to teach me. They teach me about who I am, what I want from life. They give me the clarity to move forwards and build a more fulfilling future for myself. Because when my energy is good and my purpose is clear, I know what I want to be doing and I feel focused enough to actually do it, then cravings disappear. Today is one of those days. It's a good day. I've worked out a script for this podcast. So, when I'm in my zone, in my flow, I'm happy, I'm fulfilled. I know what I'm doing with my life that day. It feels easy, and I don't have cravings. I don't need to rely on food, you know. Then, when there's friction, when I feel out of control, when I'm out of balance, when I'm confused, when I'm conflicted, they reappear. Yesterday was one of those days. And this can be triggered, or these cravings can be triggered by a combination of things. either individually or a few things that tend to collide together. And that can be menopause symptoms such as a bad sleep or low mood or just inexplicable low energy. It can be external stress. It can be old fears raising their head, self-doubt, uncertainty. But what I've learned is the wrong thing to do is to fight the cravings. Now, in the moment when cravings strike, I am often blindsided by them. But there's always a point when I can pull away and I lean into them and then I can ask the right questions. So instead of giving myself a hard time for having no willpower, having no self-control, having eaten chocolate when I didn't want to eat chocolate, I have a different approach. I lean into them. I ask questions. I get curious. And that's been a huge change because every time I do that, and I'm a big journaler, so if I have a day where I struggle with cravings, whether I do or don't give in to them, it doesn't matter because invariably the next day the journal comes out and I will be asking myself some questions. And when I lean in to what's going on, ask the right questions, I learn something new about myself every time. And when I act on that information, I move forwards, I take a step forwards. And when I first started out as a personal trainer, my main focus was weight loss. One of the first things that I wanted to change in myself was in menopause, was to lose weight. As a personal trainer, the main reason most of my clients come to me is because they want to lose weight. And the industry I work in, most of the conversation centers around what does and doesn't work when it comes to weight loss. Weight loss is the be all and end all. It's a massive thing in our society, in our culture. But I've noticed something really interesting going on when it comes to this topic of weight loss. There is no shortage of information about what works. Even in menopause, we didn't know very much maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but now we do. And in fact, what works from a weight loss perspective is actually really straightforward. If I did a course on what works in for weight loss for menopause, it would, I was not joking, could do it in 5 minutes. The real problem many people have is they can't stick to the advice that they are given. So they keep going back and looking for more advice or different advice. And you heard my midlife menopause story. So it was a really painful period of change, of disruption of hormones. And most women will have their own equally difficult and messy version of that. None of us have come through this unscathed. Some of us are still there. And many people will be going through their version of that and having cravings for the same reason that I was. And in my own experience and from witnessing my own behaviors and from that of my clients, I've learned that there are a group of women who use food to cope. We use food to cope with what's happening in our lives or to hide from it or to distract ourselves from the pain we're going through, from our feelings, from what's happening that we don't feel out of control with. And often we don't even realize we're doing it. We don't know we're doing it. We don't understand why we're doing it. So understandably, we think the battle is with the cravings, with our willpower, with our weight. We keep going back looking for a different diet, more information. But we never get where we need to be because we'll always have those cravings. But if those cravings are truly hiding something and you're prepared to lean into them, then not only do you have the opportunity to conquer those cravings and therefore the weight gain that comes from them, but you also get to open a new door onto a new chapter of your life. And that's what's really powerful. And this is why cravings can become anyone's superpower. If this is something that you've been battling with for a long time, then you can do the same as I have done. Turn those into your superpower by listening to yourself and starting on a journey of curiosity. So rather than fighting the cravings, fighting yourself, fighting, your lack of willpower or however you describe it, lean into them, use them as information. For me to have harnessed the power of cravings, I have built a support system around myself because cravings have, yes, I've talked about the positive power of cravings. If I dig into them, I find really valuable information about what is going on, what's wrong. And as I said, if I use that information, I move forward. But also, cravings can have a destructive power. If you don't have that, get that balance right where you lean into them and let them run riot and control your life, you will end up eating far more than you need, feeling incredibly frustrated about being out of control, and then see the evidence of that in your body. And that is such a horrible place to feel trapped in because you can see what's happening to yourself. You walk around, you carry it, you feel it every minute of every day, but you can't break out of the patterns that are happening until you lean into the causes of those cravings. So for me to do both, get the positive lessons from them, but also minimize their destructive power, I've had to build a support system around myself. And this is also how I support my clients as well now. I've built this into my business. It's like a type of scaffolding. It's like a support system to protect me from their effects or minimize their effect on me and my health, my mind, my body. And one of the first things that is part of this has all been about mindsets and reframing the challenges that I've gone through as information, as something I can learn from. And I've talked about that quite a lot in this episode so far. But another thing that I have done has been starting to shift my focus away from food and towards other things in our lives or in my life that we can do that do really nourish us. Because what I've realized is that, and I think this particularly happens with women who, in a large number of cases, are responsible for the food, for the shopping, for the menu planning, for the cooking. Food becomes a huge part of our lives. If we've got families and we're the main cook, you know, we are always thinking about, we always have to have one eye. We always have to think about food when we're not hungry. One day my daughter will still have to do this. And it then starts to overtake us. We're in the kitchen all the time. We're around food all the time. It's very easy for us to create these habits where when we're bored, when we don't know what to do with ourselves, when we feel a bit fed up, we can just eat something nobody sees, nobody knows. If they did, it wouldn't matter. It's totally socially acceptable. If you think about it, we live in a very food obsessed world. And food can start to take over and become all we think about. Our social lives revolve around it. It can be how we define a good night out, or a celebration, or a holiday, because we might go somewhere and choose somewhere that's just all about the food. It's how we entertain ourselves when we're bored, like I said. So being aware of that, when we're out and about, we're surrounded by food all the time. You cannot go anywhere to buy anything practically, whether you're buying food or not. And you're likely to have a choice of either have to walk past somewhere selling food or literally have it faced within a few inches of you. Fill your car up with petrol. There's special offers all the way there while you're queuing up. So we have to start to think about creating some balance so that we're not always defaulting to thinking, acting, eating. So it's about building a bigger repertoire of things that support us physically, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. So for me, that's become nutrition. I understand more now because of my cravings about how to eat, how to fuel myself, and how to eat well. Because I know when I don't, the cravings come back. So if I get my nutrition right, that has a huge impact on how hungry I am and how well I can withstand those cravings. Exercise is another pillar of this scaffolding. That's a great way to change how you think about food or change your relationship with your body. Because when you start to exercise and feel strong and feel powerful, you start to feel like you've regained control over your body. And that can also start to shift and change your relationship with food, because then you stop thinking about food as something that you're constantly trying to restrict. You start thinking about food as something that is going to support your journey into strength and fitness and the recovery from that, which is incredible. But not only that, we have to look at rest and recovery. When we go through menopause, when we go through these incredibly sort of torrid transitional periods of midlife, we get really burnt out really easily. We need to rest. We need to allow ourselves to recover. We need to start prioritizing self-care. All too often, I see when we neglect that, we turn to food more and more. When we give ourselves time to rest, to recover, to look after ourselves in different ways, we then start to reduce that dependency on food being our default solution for everything we're ever going through. Self-reflection has been huge, and very much in my coaching practice, I encourage that because often, as I've mentioned, and certainly for me, cravings have hidden, or cravings have been the way I've hidden from myself what I really want. Like, for example, when I was traveling, or wasn't traveling, more to the point, I was so frustrated that there was something in my life that I really wanted to do that I was holding myself back from. That can be a big thing. We can be craving some big monumental change in our lives, or we can want something little, more support, more understanding from people, a little bit of help, a little bit of appreciation for what we do. When those things, when we can't ask for those things and they become out of reach, we can still come back to food to do the job that we need from somewhere else. And reflection, self-reflection through journaling is how we start to understand that. Not everyone feels comfortable journaling, but when, from my practice with my clients, this is where the support and the accountability comes in, because we can start to have conversations around this. Because when we're working together, we can understand what's holding someone back, try and get in touch with what they really want that they're not getting from their lives, that's creating that attachment to food. And when we figure out what that is, we can start to move through and find better solutions, or give ourselves permission to do something that we really want, and that can be incredible. So it's that self-reflection or support or accountability can help you move through that and understand what you need, and give yourself the confidence to actually, and the permission to go for it. So all of these things, nutrition, exercise, rest, recovery, self-care, self-reflection, they all play a role in reducing our cravings, creating a healthier body, making us more resilient to the stress in our lives. That's what we need. It's helping us, and also to help us carve out more time for ourselves, to let go of the things that aren't serving us anymore. When we find that we can start to create that little bit of space for ourselves, we can start to shape our lives into something that we want, and then start to embrace the change and the transition of this stage of lives, and turn it into something special, something that really makes us feel good, that brings our excitement for life, our purpose, helps us feel motivated and energized and want to get out of bed again in the morning. So this is how my nemesis, my cravings, have bizarrely become my superpower. And even right now, I've built my personal training and coaching business on the back of what I have learned about myself, because now I can help other women who've struggled with those cravings and been unable to find the motivation to take control of their health and fitness. By leaning into my cravings, they have helped me lose weight, because cravings were what was making me cause weight in the first instance. There was no strange thing going on with my hormones in the context of it creating some mysterious chemical reaction in my body. It was all linked to how struggling to cope was making me eat. Understanding my cravings has helped me get fitter and stronger, as I've looked to support myself in positive ways rather than console myself on the sofa. And they've helped me get out of my comfort zone and challenge myself physically. Breaking those habits is hard. Being honest about your habits is also hard. Talking about them, owning up to what you do, is really hard. And that's all helped me get out of my comfort zone and challenge and help me challenge myself physically, learn how to do hard things, have difficult conversations. If they Facing up to my cravings has taught me how to cope with setbacks because there always will be some. There are things that happen in my life that send me back to where I was, where I sort of struggle with cravings again. But now I won't lose days or weeks of my life stuck in that cycle. I'll lose an hour and then I'm back to where I was. And the most powerful thing that cravings have given me have helped me shape my future. Because every time I think about, ask myself, why am I craving? I learn something about what I really want. And over time, that's given me the clarity about what I want next for my life. It helped me become a personal trainer. It helped me get my career back on track. It's helped me have different holidays, meet different people. It's given me clarity about what I want next from my life and where to go. Some days are clearer than others, but it's also helped me be patient and accept the journey for what it is. I think about the whole thing as Project Me. It's a work in progress, and I'm absolutely okay with that. But I know that it's working. I know that me leaning into these cravings, letting them guide me towards away from what holds me back and towards what I really want is how I'm mapping out my future, but also what's given me the confidence to actually go for it and turn those insights into actions. So that's a little bit more about my backstory, a little bit more about how cravings have become my superpower. And I wonder if cravings could become your superpower too. Thank you for listening today. I'll speak to you soon.